Okay, thank you, Dan. So it's my pleasure to introduce this evening's speaker, Peter Schultz, past district governor from District 5060. Just a little bit of background about our speaker tonight. Peter grew up in Toronto before attending the University of Guelph, where he met his wife, who was from Vancouver. His professional career began as a research scientist with the US Department of Energy, and he followed that with a faculty position at the University of Western Ontario as a professor of physics. Following academic life, Peter and his family relocated to Western Canada and created a holding company and restaurant business, both of which they ran for 20 years until they sold in 2015. Currently, Peter remains active as a research advisor and has been involved in various community associations and projects, including the Downtown Kelowna Association, various benefit events, and civic committees. So Peter has an extensive Rotary background. He joined the Kelowna Ogopogo Rotary Club in 1997. Then after a leave for a few years, he rejoined the Rotary Club of Kelowna in 2009. And now he's a member of the Rotary Now Kelowna Club. During his time in Rotary, he's filled many roles. He's been a club president. He's been the administrative assistant governor, chair of the Rotary Leadership Institute. He's edited the district directory, content webmaster for the district. He's facilitated PETS, district awards chair. He's been a Zone Institute trainer, and he chaired their 2017 district conference in Kelowna. So this evening, Peter's going to be speaking to us about a very timely topic for all of us in our clubs in the district on how to produce great hybrid meeting experiences. So if you haven't done so already, you might want to switch to speaker view, and I'll turn the floor over to Peter. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks, Susan. And thanks, everybody. And welcome. It's great to see you all. I understand it's nice and chilly where you are, or where some of you are anyway. So yeah, I want to start by saying good evening. This is a big topic, but it's obviously one that we've got to pay some attention to. So I mentioned, or it was mentioned, I'm with the Rotary Now Club in Kelowna. And we are very excited to be probably the only Rotary club in the world with an exclamation mark in our name. So that's something that we could take home, I guess. It's an alternative style of Rotary club. It's what I used to call Chapter 1 clubs. It was the first one in our district. And we focus on the core values that are in Chapter 1 of the Manual of Procedure. So service and fellowship primarily. And we don't worry about too much else. And it works really well. It attracts a diverse group. So yeah, so it was a great introduction. So today I want to go through this hybrid meeting stuff fairly quickly. There's a lot to it. And I think it's important that you understand. I'll touch on a lot of different things. You know, my background, was an experimental physicist, but I also spent several decades performing in various groups and bands and doing their sound. And so I have a bit of experience with the technology and the sound equipment. It's really important when you want to think about doing a hybrid meeting that you think about the basics first. This is probably the most important part of the presentation. Everything else that's going to sort of come in rapid fire after this is details. And you can always work out the details if you know what it is you want. You got to know what the group wants. And every club or organization is going to be a little bit different. And their needs are going to be a little bit different. And once a club figures out a set of starting parameters, there's literally dozens more of solutions that'll work for any given set of parameters. So it's really important that you figure this out. First of all, what kind of a hybrid meeting do you want? For example, you could have a meeting where almost everybody is there and in person, but you want to allow guests. Maybe you've got some snowbirds, or you want to invite guests from elsewhere. And maybe the guests are just observers rather than part of the meeting. That's very important on how you set things up. And you need to think about it just as if you're lecturing to a room, and you're not going to stand with your back to the room and talk to them, right? You're going to interact with the people that are in your room. And you need to do the same thing in a virtual meeting if they're going to be a part of the meeting. It really affects the design, the technology, everything. You need to think about the room size, the room shape, how many in-person members. Lighting is important. Always make sure that the speaker is well lit. And if you're meeting in a restaurant or something with a dark room, well, you need to do something about that. You're going to need something to view the Zoom on, and that's fairly obvious. You'll need at least a big screen television. Some venues may not have that, so that may be an issue that you have to work out. You may need 2 or 3 if it's a large club, or maybe it's a projector and a screen. Internet. Not all venues have great internet, and you do need decent internet if you're going to have an effective Zoom interaction. So you might need to think about a hotspot. And one of the most important things is a volunteer in the club who's going to be the operator. It's not too challenging. The technology does not need to be over the top, but somebody needs to pay attention. And I actually think it's best if the club has a committee, has 2 or 3 people that kind of share the responsibility and talk with each other, figure out their way through problems. So this is kind of a basic setup that would work for a small meeting, 20, 30 people. And this is a laptop connected to a large screen TV, or in the case of this illustration, it's a projector. And it's got one microphone, which might be Bluetooth or otherwise in the middle, and we'll talk a bit about that. But you can see they also, in this example, they talk about, or they illustrate having, where am I pointing? There we go. They're illustrating a public address system, right? They're illustrating a speaker. So they've got a podium mic. So they have a microphone in the room, which is not actually connected to the system. That's not necessary, especially in a small club. And we'll talk a bit more about simple setups. In our situation of a small club, we just use a big screen television. And you don't need a sound system if the television's got a decent speaker system. Again, it depends on how big your room is. But again, let's assume in the beginning we're talking about small clubs. You can get microphones that are USB microphones. They will plug directly into your laptop, and they're very simple to use. Now, there's some pros and cons, and you need to think about what you want to do. But the most famous, some of you probably will have heard of the Blue Yeti, which is up top. And the other one, the AKG Pro, is one that I've been using for more than 2 years at my club meetings. They work great because they allow you to use them as a directional microphone, or to select 360 degrees with sound input all the way around. Problem with USB microphones is if you start to expand your system and require more than one microphone, and we'll talk about this in a bit, there are some workarounds, but it's a little bit more tricky. Audio output options are simple. I actually bought this Bluetooth speaker that connects easily to my laptop. And I like this speaker because you can piggyback up to 100 of them together. So I have one of these speakers in my small club meeting. I'm doing a district meeting in about a month, and we will probably have 50 people there. I'll pick up another one of these speakers, and I can connect 2 of them. And you can get as many as you need for your room if that's what you want. It's simple. And you know what? Keeping things as simple as you can is very important. Video, most laptops will have a video. I guess I should have said a moment ago, with microphones, laptops and webcams all have microphones in them, but they're directional. And if you're going to have an effective meeting, maybe there's 10 or 15 or 20 of you in your club, you want to make sure that everybody's voice can be heard. And you can get away with one microphone. In our club meetings, a single 360-degree microphone works just fine. The video, there's all sorts of options for video. You can spend $50. You can spend $1,000. I happen to like a Razer Coyote Pro, which I picked up about a month ago. And it gives a really nice, clear, sharp picture. And we use that at our club meetings, and I'm using it right now. I could switch to my computer camera and it would look a little different. And there I am with the computer camera coming down. So there are options, and it takes a little time to focus in. A newer single lens reflex can be a really interesting option. You can get a very clear and controllable with the zoom lens video stream, but not all of them are compatible. And something that I like to use is a cell phone. Each video image in a hybrid meeting is a different Zoom link, right? I would think that's pretty clear, but I can answer questions on that later. But you know, when we have even a small meeting, I will have the webcam on top of the television that we're all staring at, so it would be collecting an image of the entire room. But I'll have a cell phone set up on a little tripod. This one actually is clipped to an LED light, which is pretty cheap and easy to pick up on Amazon. And we use this as the speaker view, and we can just pass that around the room and have a second link. It's important, by the way, if you use multiple links into a Zoom meeting, whether you have multiple laptops, maybe 2 or 3 people in the room want their own laptop, and that's fine, but you can only have one audio in, one audio out. You have to make sure everything else is muted, or those of you who have played with this will have noticed the feedback. So a nice option, and I don't want to spend a lot of time with this particular image that I just pulled off the internet, but it can be nice if you can get a second operator. If there's 2 of you in the group that have a laptop and want to work together on this, you can have one person controlling, and I'll show you some nice controllable webcams in a minute if you're interested in that kind of thing, and another laptop that's simply running the sound and that sort of stuff. So again, it can help your setup to have a second operator, not necessary. So stepping up to, let's call it nice options. These would cost a bit of money. They call them PTZ, which stands for Pan, Tilt, Zoom. But you can get these very high quality webcams that you can control remotely. And depending on your environment, you might want to be able to pan the camera from one person to another. You might want to zoom it out. You might want that control. Again, that's getting into more money than most want. And so that's why I call it an option. And in a moment, we're going to start talking about maybe you want more than one microphone. Again, with a Zoom link, even in a room with multiple laptops, you can only have one source of audio going into it. As soon as you start having multiple audio in, audio out, you're going to get feedback. And so if you want to have multiple microphones, you need what's called an audio interface, or a mixer is the other word. This is a pretty basic standard mixer with one difference from the usual sound system used for performing groups, and that is it has a USB out. So if you plug microphones into this mixer, it has the ability to, with a USB cable, connect it to your computer and patch it into the Zoom system. The Behringer is a very cost-effective system. There is mixers available. They call them podcast mixers, which are probably more directly designed for the kind of thing we do, the Zoom meetings. So they are made to plug into a computer. They're made to take maybe 2 microphones or maybe 4 microphones. It depends on the one. And a slightly higher quality. This is one I just ordered, in fact, yesterday. And this is a 6-channel mixer that plugs directly into a computer. And in fact, is powered by the computer. So I can, it's quite small. And I can operate 2 or 3 microphones, which I need to do in some of the district meetings that we have. As I said, my club is small. Now, if you're thinking about microphones, and I don't want to get too technical on you here, but there's different different directionality, if you will, in the sensitivity of a microphone. The most standard is what's called cardioid. And you can see a cardioid basically picks up sound that's in front of it on a fairly wide angle. Some of them are fairly narrow. The other common type is omnidirectional. And those USB microphones I showed you before that do 360 degrees, they're omnidirectional. That's the technical term. All sorts of microphones you can look at. And again, wireless can be convenient for a Rotary club because people end up tripping over wires. And I can tell you from years of hooking equipment together, 9 times out of 10, something is not working, whether it be in my laboratory that's got thousands of moving parts in it, or just on stage with a band. If something's not working, it probably has to do with the cable and the connection. It just seems to be the case. When I first bought a wireless microphone like that Shure SM58 that's shown in the lower left corner there, it was close to $500. The one that's shown below is, I think, a Behringer. Yeah, and that's a dual mic setup, which is a couple $100. It's reasonable for a club if you need multiple microphones. A lav mic can be really useful for a speaker, and that's in fact exactly what I'm using right now, is that unit. And that just helps. If you're going to have a room with maybe 20 Rotarians in it, you can have a keynote speaker. It's kind of nice to have a lav mic on your keynote speaker. So here's a small club setup that could work. And this is very much like what I do in my small Rotary club. We're about 20 members. So we have a big screen TV. We meet in a boardroom. And we don't have a meal. We don't have a lot of Rotary traditions, but we've got a big screen TV at the end of the board table, and I've got a webcam, and you can put the webcam on a tripod as shown there in number 3, or what we actually do is just hang the webcam on the flat screen television, so that when we're all sitting back at the board table looking up at the big TV, we're actually looking pretty much straight at the webcam. And that's important. Remember, I started it off with the basics. It's very important you think about how you want your interactions to go. You don't want everybody who's in person to be looking away from everybody who's at the Zoom meeting. They don't feel engaged at all. So if you're going to run hybrid meetings, you need to think about keeping people engaged. I have an AKG microphone, but it's just like the Blue Yeti. We put it out in the middle of the room, and it does a very effective job at picking everybody up in this sort of 15, 20 person environment. Sometimes I use the Bluetooth speaker, which runs easily, and sometimes we just use the speaker in the television. And then, of course, I always have at least one camera or one cell phone logged into the Zoom meeting. And remember, I mentioned, be very careful that you turn the audio off on the cell phone, but it just becomes another view that you can feature your speaker with. We can get to a little bit larger club. And the kind of technology I've been proposing, you can scale up pretty simply. You can still work with a single laptop. And you remember I mentioned, of course, there's some benefits if there's two of you in the club that can operate a laptop, and you can split up the duties. But with a single laptop, you're either projecting the Zoom meeting onto a screen, or it's in a big screen TV. If it's a smart TV, you don't even need to wire it in. It'll airdrop to it. You've got a main camera, number 3, and maybe that is the camera for the podium speaker, or maybe that's the camera for the area. Let's call it camera for the podium, and then we've got a couple of cell phones set up, or maybe there are other laptops with webcams, so that the people who are coming by Zoom, if this is a meeting of 40 people in person, you want more than one camera. You want the people who are coming by Zoom to have a sense of the multiple people in the room. And then as you can see, I have a simple mixer and some microphones, and there's all sorts of options for microphones. Some other options you can think of: the second operator I mentioned once before. They can be the primary host and be concerned with some of the details, which you're all well aware of because you run these talk shows, and you understand that having a few people doing different things makes it easy. The wireless lav mic, I love having this wireless lav mic. We use it even in our small club. If our speaker is coming by Zoom, well, we don't need it. But if our speaker is coming in person, we always give them a feature with the lav mic. You can add more speakers for better sound coverage. You can add, if you're a big club, you might want to add a second display, a second projector, a big screen TV. Most clubs that are doing this are 20, 30 people meeting in person. You don't need a whole lot of big club technology. And I know, this was pretty fast, and I covered a whole lot of different things, but I think it's important that we have time for some chat. Because you're a big group tonight, I have proposed that we go into breakouts. You go into smaller groups of, I don't know, 9 or 10 people, and have a chance to talk about. And what I would invite you to talk about for, I don't know, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever they give you. Those of you that have some experience with hybrid or audiovisual technology, share what has worked for you and share what's not worked for you. Those of you who have some questions, bring the questions up. Maybe one person in each room would volunteer to be a scribe. So take some notes, and then when we come back, I will ask you each room to give me your top question or comment. And then we'll go around to the various rooms, and then we'll keep going around, and we'll get through as many of your questions as we can.
Great, thank you, Peter. So I do have people designated to go into breakout rooms here. So I'm just going to open the rooms. We'll put you in the rooms for about 15 minutes, and then we'll bring everybody back to the main room. So here we go.
And Susan, as a co-host, I could pop in and out of rooms, so maybe I'll do that.
And I think did it invite you to one, Peter?
I'm all automatically assigned to a first one. I'll start by going there.
Okay. So anybody who hasn't gone into a room, you should have an invitation somewhere on your screen to join a breakout room. So, two folks still left. Did either of you get invitations? Sandy? There we go.
There you go. I had to turn my video off. Bob's comments I found really upsetting. I sent him a private chat, letting him know that he clearly doesn't understand what's involved in setting these meetings up.
If he doesn't want to be here, he can leave. Like,
Pretty much, you know.
Oh, let me start my timer.
Did I mention that I'm visiting?
And it's farther from me.
You've got some audio thing going on there, Fred, but isn't pretty much everything 220 kilometers from Kenora?
No, Toronto is like 2,000 kilometers.
Yeah, okay. Well, I did pop into a couple of the rooms and address some questions, but some of you may have other questions. Either put a physical hand up or if you know how to use the reaction button, a virtual hand. If you were in one of the rooms and you want to share a comment that we all could benefit from, or you have a question, let's fire away and see where we can get with that. Nobody has any questions. That's perfect. That's oh, Alan does.
In our meeting, one of the questions that come up had to do with global grants, and you want to talk to the people in the other country. Do you both got to set up on a Zoom? Was the question, or how do you do that if you want to talk to someone, you know, say Nicaragua, and you're here? How do you arrange that? That was the question. Sure.
So it's as easy as a phone call. If you wanted to talk to somebody and they have a phone, you would phone them. If you've got a smartphone, you could FaceTime them and have a little video chat. And with Zoom, you can do the same thing. So if you've got a Zoom license, whether it's a free one or a paid one, you can set up a Zoom meeting and email them a link, and you can both come on the Zoom meeting. Yeah, it's a great way to do your international work, because I mean, I'm sure you would all agree with me. We hate the pandemic and everything that came with the pandemic, but you know, as Rotarians, we've learned some new tricks, haven't we? I mean, in our district, for sure, we will use Zoom for training, certain aspects of training. We will get together when we can, but a lot of the training is better done on Zoom. Okay, I don't know which one was first. Was it Alan or Lorna?
Lorna.
Thank you, Lorna.
Yeah, one of the questions that came up in our group was, how much should a club expect to spend? And then we got moved in here. So I know I know you gave us some examples of how much to it. Yeah. So the question was, how much should we expect to spend?
Yeah, and of course the answer is it depends. It depends on what you want to achieve. So let's talk about my club. My club's about 20 people. And you know what? A club of 20, 30 people is pretty typical. We happen to meet in a boardroom where there's a big screen TV. If you have no ability to view something, that's a cost. So you might have to buy a projector and a screen, or you might have to buy a big screen TV, depending on how big a screen it is. And you might have to buy a stand to put it on. I don't know, but that can be a cost. A lot of places where you meet does have a display device, like a big screen TV. A lot of restaurants do, a lot of meeting rooms do. If that's the case, if nobody in the club has a laptop, you're probably going to need to buy a laptop. If somebody's got a laptop, well, you don't need that. So what do you need? Well, the basic USB microphones that I was talking about, like the one I bought, I think I paid $200 for it 3 years ago, and it's probably $100 to $130 right now. The webcam, you can get passable webcams for $50. The one I'm using, let me switch cameras here for a minute. Let me go to my FaceTime camera and then hold this up. I can show you this Kaio webcam that I'm using that's hanging on the back of my laptop right now. I paid $150 for that. So again, if you've got a big screen TV, you don't need to buy any sound. I showed you that Sony speaker that I bought that gives the room lots of sound. And that was $130 when I bought it. So those are the kinds of numbers. Depending on whether you need to buy a TV or a projector, I don't know. But if you don't, if you've got a laptop, you've got a TV, you're probably in the range of $400 to $500. And it goes up from there. So it was Alan and Hobie.
Hi, I had 3 questions. The first one is whether you've ever had to tether your laptop to a cell phone, and if so, what's the cost of the data transfer for that, for a typical 1-hour meeting?
I don't know the answer to that. It would depend on your data plan. So
would you recommend it?
I have done it, but I have not done it a lot. I had to do that recently, and I've forgotten when I had to do that because there was no great internet where I happened to be. So I use my cell phone. But most phone plans have an awful lot of data. And really, that's not a question I can answer. You have to sort of look at your phone plan and communicate with TELUS or Rogers or whoever it is you're with and ask them.
Well, the reason I brought that question up is in our breakout room, one of the individuals indicated that the hosting organization wouldn't allow the club to use their Wi-Fi because of certain restrictions. So that'd be a circumstance where you'd have to tether. The second question is, do you get feedback between speakers and microphone?
You know, in all the stuff I've done with the bands that I've sung with, that balancing the microphones and the PA system is a constant challenge so that you get a nice blend. I have never had a challenge with club meetings and smaller things. And I think it's because you don't have the kind of broadcast level of output with the speakers, and you don't have as many microphones as you would for a performance group. So I have not had a challenge with feedback. The only challenge I have, by the way, is when somebody else goes into the room and they set up their laptop and they link into Zoom and forget to turn their audio off. And then, of course, you've all probably heard that before.
Yeah. And the third question is, what specifications would you recommend for the laptop? Do you need a dedicated graphics card in the laptop?
I don't know. I've been using Macs for 20 years, and they're pretty good. Most laptops do not allow you to swap out a graphics card, as far as I know.
Almost all of them have. Well, some of the higher end ones have built-in graphics cards.
Yeah.
In addition to on-chip graphics, and there's a mux switch that you can switch between the two.
Okay.
But
so,
that's an expensive computer.
The answer would be in the room, Alan, because there's probably PC users on this call that know more about what PC technology is available than I do. Because like I said, I used to be all PCs when I was building accelerators, because I could take them apart and put the pieces in that I wanted. But since I've done more graphic kind of stuff, I've gone Mac. Hobie.
Hi there. I've been trying a bunch of different technologies and so forth, try to moving towards having our club doing hybrid. And one of the things you mentioned is you actually have a Sony speaker that you could have up to 100 of them. and making sure all the sound is synchronized. I'm assuming that's what they have in there. They're synchronized between all the different devices, so there's no slightly delayed sound coming out of each speaker, right?
Yeah, so the Sony Bluetooth speaker is what you're talking about.
Yes, the one you showed.
Yeah, I bought one of them and I love it. It's great. I have not gone beyond that, but when I was shopping for it, and that was just a trip to Best Buy, and the best way to learn about technology is to find an 18-year-old in a Best Buy store. But anyway, as I nailed an 18-year-old down and said, which speakers do I want? And for me, the selling feature was I only needed a single speaker for the boardroom we're in. We've never had more than 25 people in person. Often we're like 8 or 10 or 12 people, and the rest are on Zoom. So a single speaker is enough. But I chose that one because it is apparently trivial to add more of them if I want to distribute them around the room. So
Okay.
I have no direct experience with it. I've just been sold on that.
Okay. Yeah, I actually look into the technology and all the different speakers, and I haven't found too many that actually that aren't hundreds of dollars each that synchronize sound. We actually have something in Selkirk here that is in the golf course that it's about $400 each for synchronizing video and sound. So every speaker coming out of the TVs and video is all synchronized.
Well, that little Sony speaker might be your answer then. But you know, if you need bigger sound, there are better ways to do it. I like the speaker because it works for my club of 20, but I can scale it up for a medium-sized club pretty simply for a district meeting kind of thing. But if I was doing big rooms of 100 people or 200 people, I would use a PA speaker system.
Okay.
Kurt.
Yeah, the idea sometimes you want zones, you want actually different things happening at different areas. So okay. And oh yeah, sorry, I have one more question. I got up written on my screen there OBS software. It's a video studio software that's free. It allows transitions and so forth, and just like what you were doing. Can I ask you how you were doing your?
I know about some of that third-party software, and I have never used it or investigated it. What I was doing is built into Zoom. So when you hit share screen, there will be tabs at the top of that window, and there's it defaults to a basic share, and so you share whatever you want to share, whether it's your Word document or your Excel spreadsheet or your PowerPoint presentation. But if you do advanced share, the first option is PowerPoint slides as a background.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that feature was there. Okay, thank you.
Kurt.
Notice in your background,
you're muted, Kurt.
Okay, sorry. How's that?
That's good.
Okay, so on your background is nice and clear, and you're in front of that background nice and clear yourself. But if I change my background and if I move, it all goes blurry. And you can see that some people have different backgrounds behind them right now.
Right.
And if they move, you'll see. Yeah. So you got two cameras or what?
So first of all, have you got that behind you?
No, I got my room behind me.
Right. So I have this high-tech piece of green fabric that I bought at a fabric store. And I mentioned Fabric Land, but Fred told me he had to drive 200 kilometers to get to Fabric Land. So any fabric store that you like. But if you've got a green screen and a decent camera, now Macs are pretty high end. I told you, here's my the camera that's built into my desktop. It's not bad, but it's not as good as this Razer. And I've tried a few different webcams, and you see how it takes time to focus in. This is the clearest webcam that I've seen of the ones I've tried. And I don't have huge experience with webcams, but so if you've got a decent webcam And if you're doing Zoom meetings and you want a nice clear background, then you probably should a piece of green fabric. And when you share the background down the lower left corner, there's an option that you can click that says you've got a green screen.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Yeah, Susan.
Yeah, my question's not a technical one, Peter. It's more about the management of the Zoom meeting or the hybrid meetings. And what do you recommend as best approaches for making sure that remote people are engaged in the meeting?
Yeah, and that is a big question and probably the most important one. And I recommend if a club is going to go hybrid, you probably should have a club assembly and talk about that and say, okay, how do we want this to work? But for example, if you're going to have 15 people on Zoom and 15 people in the room, you want everybody to be engaged. You need to actively involve the Zoom people somehow. So maybe you want a committee that says, what are some productive ways that we can do this? There's some fun games you can do. I built a Jeopardy game for my family that works on PowerPoint, and we played that by Zoom that first year when we were all shut down and we couldn't get together, and we got together for Christmas Zoom and visited, and we played Jeopardy, and we played what's the other one? There's a few things you can do. Sometimes it's nice to build in social activities that actually involve the people on Zoom. I've heard of some people come up with little Q&A kind of quizzes, right? So at 20 minutes into the meeting, they're going to take 10 minutes and say, okay, how far is Kenora from Fabricland? And who knows the answer to that? And Fred knows. But stuff like that, but it's a conscious thing, right? And it's very important that you think about that, because otherwise, I remember one of the first clubs I went to talk to, and they were really proud. They were doing hybrid Zoom meetings. And so I came in by Zoom, and I saw the president's butt and backside while she addressed the club meeting for 20 minutes. You know, you need to think about your Zoom attendees, otherwise the hybrid won't work. But as long as you do, I think it's a great option for us, because when they're traveling, you know, Fred's in Toronto, and who did I hear earlier in Asuyas out my neck of the woods, and you're all meeting here together tonight. You know, that's the good thing about it. Fred.
Cheryl Winger had a question. Do microphones with speakers work? We have a wireless mic.
A microphone with a speaker.
It sounds like if we can plug our speaker into the laptop and have the microphones plugged into that same speaker system, we'd be okay, but would we?
Yeah, so again, the devil's in the details, right? And it really depends what the details are. But in one of those early slides I showed that I just pulled off the internet, they always had a room mic, or they called it a podium mic, right? And they showed it going into the PA, public address system. So basically the room mic was plugged into a speaker so that the room got the results of the amplified voice. It was not plugged directly into the system. Then they had a microphone that was plugged into the laptop that was picking up the sound from the room. And that would work depending on the size of the room. It may not be the highest quality, but it would work. There's various ways to put it together. And I think it all comes back to, you know, how big is the room? How many people? What do we want to achieve with this? And then you start looking at the pieces and saying, yeah, what equipment do people have? Can we make that work? And what do we need to pick up to make it work?
I
Thank you.
think David Ronson had a question.
Yes, I was wondering those diagrams that you showed us, you just answered it though, they were on the internet. Is there any possibility you could share those setup diagrams with us?
I think I already did. Susan, have you got all that stuff? Or
There was a link, Fred, I think that went out with one of the emails to the registrants that
Yeah.
had the
Yeah,
link
it
to
had all
page
the
for
resource
of them.
material on. If you look
the,
back on your invitations, you'll see the link to those resources.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, while we're on, I'll just see if I can find it here again. I'll put it in the chat.
Thanks, Susan.
if you Google
But we
Rotary,
can- We can
Google
also share the recording, right, of the session tonight.
Yeah, the recording of the session usually is up on our district website in the following week. So next week sometime, it'll be up on our district website.
and our district website has a previous recording of a similar thing that I did, as well as most of those PowerPoint slides that I showed. I think the PowerPoint is downloadable from the website, and 5 or 6 different documents that, again, I just found on the internet of people. Some of them are very simple and some of them are way too complicated, right? But there's, and like I said, that's why you need to start with the basics. What is it we want? And even then, there's dozens, if not hundreds of solutions.
And
Yeah.
Peter, remind people of your district number so they can look that up if they so choose.
5060.
5060. And Tim Spencer has the last question. We're running out of time.
Thank you very much. I was just, I was just thinking you were talking about multiple cameras in the meeting area that you'd be able to send out different views. Do you need some sort of a video switcher to switch between those signals, or is that something that happens in the laptop itself?
Yeah, so each Zoom link, so each laptop has only one visual and one audio option, right? Now, the audio option in a laptop can come through an audio interface, what we call a mixer, so that you can use multiple microphones to give one audio signal. But there's no simple video solution. And that's why I showed this little treat or cheat. Let's make it work. So this is my $12 LED light that I found on Amazon. And on the back of it, it's a little stretchy thing that a cell phone clips into. So let me turn the light off so you can see what you're looking at. So basically, I can look at the back of my cell phone, but the cell phone camera is right there. And it just sits on a little tripod on a desk. And then I go to the Zoom meeting with my cell phone. So it's another link into the Zoom meeting. So each view is a different link. So you can do it if there's 2 people in your club that have a laptop, you can plug a webcam into each of them. And that's why I mentioned there's some options if you want to get really fancy. You can get those webcams that'll zoom and pan out and do all sorts of things. You can do that if you want. And hook one of them.
I was just thinking, so the video you're sending out, the image, like the stream of video you're sending out to the remote participants, you can sometimes be showing them the cell phone image, sometimes showing them laptop 1, sometimes showing the webcam. I don't quite grasp how you're switching between those for the video. Okay.
They're just in the same way we all have our images on this meeting. They would be 2 different boxes on the meeting. So, okay. and you know about dragging images, right? You know, you can move images around. Well, not when somebody's got their hand up, but if nobody is being spotlit or has their hand up, you can move faces on a Zoom meeting wherever you want, right? Did you know that? When it's in gallery view, you can just grab them with your mouse and move them wherever you want. When I'm facilitating a training session, I call it Zoom dominoes. because I have a webcam in the middle, and I like to make sure that the people are all organized pretty much around the webcam, so that I'm not talking to them like that, so that I'm more or less looking at the people I'm talking to. But it is, and there's spotlighting. Again, if hybrid meetings are going to become a significant part of your club, and I think they should, start to explore the different options, right? It's kind of nice. That's why I said, if you've got two people with a laptop, one of them can do the spotlight. And by spotlight, I can make one face dominate your view. Now you have the option of clicking gallery and overriding it, but if you don't, typically I can make you the main speaker, and then as each speaker comes up, you can spotlight them, and they become the main view. There are things you can do with it that are not that hard. You just need to play around with it.
Thanks, Peter. Susan, we did say it was the last question. Do you have something that's really quick?
Really quick. I was gonna mention Spotlight, but my questions that came to mind was, what do you do when you don't have really good internet and you can't get 2 or 3 people signed into Zoom, or 2 or 3 different devices?
Yeah, go to the pub. Yeah, no, sometimes you need decent internet to do video conferencing or Zoom. The internet at the restaurant or the meeting space may not be great, and your cell service may be better. And we talked about that a bit before, but I have used my cell internet to log into a meeting before. Even though I'm logging into it with my laptop, I just use my cell as a hotspot. But if you don't have internet, you don't have a Zoom meeting.
Okay, there's your answer, Sue. Peter, we want to say thank you. We'd really like to have more words of wisdom, but we're running out of time. Kind of like if you were a professor in your class, the bell's about to ring. So, but you clearly kept our attention. People were very focused on your PowerPoint when you were presenting, and there were lots of good questions and comments in the breakout room. So we really thank you for your expertise and for your time and for joining us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gail Marie, and everybody else. And yeah, you know how to get a hold of me if any of these resources people can't find, or, just reach out and I'll send you stuff.
Okay. And thank you to the Learning and Development team for their technology tonight. It's all been very helpful, and everything worked more or less. Some of it took a bit of time because of people struggling with the technology to get into the meeting, but we can only keep experiencing these talk shows, and hopefully in the future, everybody will be able to get in quickly. And thank you to all of the participants. It was really appreciated that you joined us tonight. So as you know, we're doing another talk show. Our next talk show is on April 7th. And currently, as you all know, we're working on our district growth plan at the behest of Rotary International. They're threatening in some ways to redistrict us because our numbers are so low. And so we're having every Rotarian, every Rotary Club in our district put forward their ideas, and we're putting together a growth plan to show them that we will continue to be a very vibrant and active District 5550. We're also working on our strategic plan, and one of the main goals is about membership, and that includes all sorts of other things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we're very hopeful that we're going forward next Rotary year with a very positive attitude, and we're going to continue to be a great district. So we really encourage everybody to be involved in this process. And our next session is we have Dan Doherty, and he'll be presenting on the attributes of a vibrant, healthy club and how we can achieve them. So we want you all to join us and tell us, what does your Rotary look like? How can you help to make your club strong? And we'll get together and talk about that on April 7th at 7 p.m. Saskatchewan time, 8 p.m. Manitoba and Northwestern Ontario. So thank you very much, everybody. A very successful evening tonight. And again, thanks awfully to Peter Schultz. Bye now.